I was reaching for my third cup of coffee that Tuesday morning when Maria, our new night cleaner, appeared beside me like a guardian angel, her weathered hands trembling slightly. She leaned close and whispered in accented English, "Mom, they moved your laptop into the conference room. Don't go in yet." I paused, my hand frozen halfway to the coffee pot. Through the break room's glass doors, I could see movement in the main conference room. 5 minutes later, I watched in complete shock as Amanda Thompson, our VP's daughter, began presenting to our biggest client using what looked exactly like my slides. Then our legal team walked in, froze at the doorway, and Sarah Chen's voice cut through the room like ice. "So, who logged in under her credentials?" The silence that followed felt like the world had stopped spinning. "My name is Ingrid, and I had been working as Senior Marketing Manager at TechFlow Solutions for 4 years when this nightmare began. Our company specialized in healthcare technology solutions, and I had spent the last 3 months pouring my heart and soul into developing what I believed would be a revolutionary client acquisition strategy for Medcore Industries. This wasn't just any account. This was a $2 million contract that could transform our entire company's future. The project consumed my days and haunted my nights. I had developed a proprietary algorithm that analyzed patient data patterns to predict healthcare facility expansion needs. It was groundbreaking work, combining my marketing expertise with advanced analytics I had perfected during my graduate studies at Northwestern. Every morning, I arrived at the office by 7, staying until well past 9 most evenings, fine-tuning presentations, running data models, and crafting what I knew would be the pitch of my career. 6 weeks ago, Amanda Thompson had arrived at our company as a special consultant. Everyone knew she was David Thompson's daughter, our Vice President of Strategic Development, but nobody dared speak about the obvious nepotism. Amanda was 26, fresh out of an expensive MBA program, with perfectly styled blonde hair and designer suits that cost more than my monthly salary. She carried herself with the confidence that only comes from a lifetime of privilege and unopened doors. David had assigned Amanda to assist on my Medcore project, explaining that she needed hands-on experience with major client presentations. I welcomed the help initially, thinking that having the VP's daughter on my team might actually provide valuable support and resources. Amanda seemed eager to learn, asking thoughtful questions about my methodology and taking detailed notes during our planning sessions. Standing in that break room, watching through the glass partition, I felt my entire world crashing down around me. Amanda was presenting my slides, slide by slide, to a room filled with senior executives and Medcore representatives. There was CEO Janet Williams, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, nodding approvingly at charts and graphs I had created during countless late nights. CFO Robert Hayes leaned forward in his chair, clearly impressed by the financial projections I had meticulously calculated. 3 representatives from Medcore Industries, including their Chief Operations Officer Margaret Foster, were taking notes on iPads as Amanda spoke with practiced confidence about market penetration strategies and revenue optimization models. But these weren't just similar slides or inspired presentations. These were my exact slides, complete with proprietary algorithms, custom graphics I had designed, and even specific color schemes I had chosen to match Medcore's brand identity. The slide transitions, the data visualization style, even the particular font combinations, everything was identical to the presentation I had been perfecting for weeks. Maria noticed my stunned expression and gently touched my arm. "I saw them last night," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "Miss Amanda and 2 men I never seen before. They moved your laptop from your office to that room at midnight. I heard them talking about making something look authentic, about passwords and access codes. My hands began shaking as the implications sank in. I pulled out my phone and quickly accessed our company's security app, something most employees never bothered using. My keycard access logs showed entries to my office at times when I was definitely at home sleeping. Someone had been accessing my workspace, my computer, my files, using my credentials without my knowledge. The entries showed access at 1:47 a.m. last Tuesday, 3:23 a.m. the previous Thursday, and multiple other overnight timestamps spanning the past 2 weeks. Each entry was logged under my employee ID number, but I had been home in my apartment in Lincoln Park every single night, sometimes video chatting with my sister in Portland, or watching Netflix until I fell asleep on my couch. As I stared at the evidence on my phone screen, Amanda's voice drifted through the conference room's slightly open door. She was explaining the customer lifetime value calculations using the exact phrasing I had practiced dozens of times in front of my bathroom mirror. She discussed market segmentation strategies with the same enthusiasm I had felt when I discovered those insights through weeks of research. She was stealing not just my work, but my passion, my voice, my professional identity. The legal team's sudden entrance had clearly disrupted something significant. Sarah Chen from our legal department stood frozen in the doorway, her expression shifting from confusion to alarm as she processed what she was witnessing. Behind her, two other legal team members, Michael Rodriguez and Patricia Kim, exchanged worried glances while scanning the room full of executives and clients. The room had fallen completely silent after Sarah's pointed question about login credentials. Amanda's face flushed slightly, but she maintained her composure with remarkable skill. CEO Janet Williams looked puzzled, clearly unaware of any potential security issues. David Thompson, Amanda's father, straightened in his chair with a defensive posture that suggested he knew more than he was letting on. I realized in that moment that this wasn't just workplace theft or a misunderstanding about collaboration. Someone had orchestrated a sophisticated plan to steal my work, use my credentials to cover their tracks, and position Amanda as the brilliant strategist behind a multi-million-dollar client presentation. My 3 months of dedicated work, my innovative algorithms, my professional reputation, everything was being stolen in real time while I stood helplessly in a break room, clutching a coffee cup and trying to process the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. The worst part wasn't just the theft itself, but the realization that I had been completely naive about the dangers lurking in corporate environments. I had trusted Amanda, welcomed her collaboration, even shared my research methodologies and preliminary findings during our supposed partnership. I had been so focused on creating exceptional work that I had failed to protect myself from the people who would exploit that dedication for their own advancement. The conference room drama continued for another 20 minutes while I stood frozen in the break room, watching my career potentially crumble through glass walls. When the MedCorp representatives finally left, shaking hands enthusiastically with Amanda and praising her innovative approach, I felt physically nauseated. Sarah Chen immediately approached me, her expression grave and professional. "Ingrid, we need to talk privately," she said, guiding me toward a small meeting room away from the main office area. Sarah was in her early 40s, with sharp brown eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a reputation for thorough, meticulous legal work. She had joined TechFlow 3 years ago from a prestigious Chicago law firm, and her presence always commanded respect. Once the meeting room door closed, Sarah's professional mask slipped slightly, revealing genuine concern. "We've been investigating potential security breaches in our system for the past week," she began, opening her laptop and turning the screen toward me. "Your login credentials have been flagging our monitoring software with unusual activity patterns." The screen showed a detailed forensics report that made my stomach drop even further. Someone had been accessing my accounts not just during overnight hours, but also downloading massive amounts of data, copying files to external drives, and even accessing systems I rarely used myself. The report indicated that whoever was using my credentials had intimate knowledge of our network architecture and security protocols. This level of access suggests either sophisticated hacking or inside collaboration, Sarah explained, scrolling through pages of technical data. "But your behavioral patterns, your actual computer usage, and your physical office access don't match the digital footprint we're seeing." I explained what Maria had witnessed, and Sarah's expression darkened. She immediately called our IT director, Kevin Walsh, requesting an emergency security audit of all systems accessed under my credentials. Kevin arrived within minutes, carrying a laptop bag and looking unusually serious for someone who typically maintained an easygoing demeanor. Kevin was a tall, lanky man in his 30s with curly red hair and an encyclopedic knowledge of cybersecurity. He had been with TechFlow since its founding, building our entire network infrastructure from the ground up. His casual flannel shirts and sneakers belied his expertise in digital forensics and corporate security systems. "The breach is sophisticated," Kevin said, connecting his laptop to our conference room's display monitor. "Someone used professional-grade spyware to monitor Ingrid's keystrokes, screen activity, and even webcam feeds. This isn't amateur hour we're dealing with. The evidence Kevin presented was both fascinating and terrifying. Screenshots showed my desktop being monitored in real time, capturing every document I opened, every email I sent, every late-night revision to my MedCore presentation. Hidden malware had been recording my voice during phone calls and video conferences, potentially capturing passwords and sensitive information I never realized I was sharing. But here's the interesting part, Kevin continued, highlighting specific data points. The spyware installation required physical access to your computer. Someone had to plug in a USB device or access your machine directly to install this level of surveillance software. Sarah and Kevin exchanged meaningful glances before Sarah revealed the next devastating piece of information. We ran a background check on Amanda Thompson after noticing some irregularities in her employment verification, she said carefully. She's worked for 3 different companies in the past 4 years, and each employment ended abruptly, always just before intellectual property lawsuits could be filed. The pattern was chilling. Amanda would join companies as a consultant or temporary employee, gain access to valuable projects and proprietary information, then disappear when legal investigations began. Her father's influence and connections had apparently helped her avoid serious consequences, allowing her to continue this pattern of corporate theft across multiple organizations. At her previous company, Synergy Health Solutions, she allegedly stole a client database worth over $1 million, Sarah explained, reading from a confidential legal document. The case was settled quietly, with confidentiality agreements preventing public disclosure. Before that, she was suspected of stealing marketing algorithms from a startup called Innovate Care. But the company went bankrupt before they could pursue legal action. My hands trembled as I processed this information. I wasn't just dealing with workplace jealousy or opportunistic theft. I was apparently the latest target in a systematic pattern of corporate espionage and intellectual property theft that had been going on for years. Kevin's computer forensics investigation revealed even more disturbing details. The spyware on my system had been active for nearly 6 weeks, coinciding exactly with Amanda's arrival at TechFlow. But the sophistication of the malware suggested professional hackers, not something Amanda could have implemented herself. We found evidence of payments to a cybersecurity consulting firm called Digital Dynamics Solutions, Kevin reported, pulling up financial records that Sarah's legal investigation had uncovered. $15,000 paid in cash 3 weeks ago, right around the time the most intensive monitoring of Ingrid's system began. Sarah made notes in her legal pad while Kevin continued analyzing the digital evidence. The scope of the surveillance was becoming clear, and it extended far beyond just stealing my MedCore presentation. Whoever was behind this had been systematically capturing every aspect of my professional work, potentially building a comprehensive library of my methodologies, client relationships, and innovative strategies. There's something else, Kevin said, his voice dropping to a more serious tone. The malware includes components designed to fabricate evidence of collaboration. It can backdate documents, create fake email trails, and generate false revision histories to make it appear that Amanda was involved in creating your original work. The sophistication of this scheme was overwhelming. This wasn't just theft. It was an elaborate frame job designed to steal my work while simultaneously creating evidence that Amanda had been a legitimate collaborator from the beginning. If successful, she could claim co-ownership or even primary ownership of my innovations, leaving me with no legal recourse. Sarah stood up, gathering her documents with determined efficiency. We're documenting everything and preserving all digital evidence, she said firmly. But Ingrid, you need to understand that David Thompson is not going to accept these allegations about his daughter quietly. He has significant influence in this company and powerful connections throughout the industry. As if summoned by her words, David Thompson's voice boomed through the hallway outside our meeting room. Where is this supposed meeting about security breaches? He demanded angrily. I want to know why my daughter is being subjected to suspicious questioning during what should have been a career-defining presentation. Through the meeting room's glass panel, I could see David striding toward us, his face red with indignation. He was a large man in his 50s, with silver hair and an expensive navy suit that emphasized his executive presence. His reputation for protecting his family's interests, regardless of ethical considerations, was well known throughout the company. Sarah quickly closed her laptop and gathered the printed evidence. This investigation is about to become much more complicated, she warned me quietly. But we have solid evidence, and we're going to pursue this regardless of who gets uncomfortable. David burst through the meeting room door without knocking, his eyes blazing with fury. I understand there are allegations being made against my daughter, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to intimidating subordinates. I want this nonsense stopped immediately, and I want formal apologies issued to Amanda for the embarrassment you've caused her during a crucial client presentation. The room's atmosphere became electric with tension as David's presence filled the small space. Sarah maintained her professional composure, but I could see the steel in her eyes as she prepared to defend the investigation against executive pressure. Mr. Thompson, Sarah said calmly, this is a legal investigation into potential security breaches and intellectual property theft. We're following standard protocols and documenting evidence according to established procedures. David's laugh was harsh and dismissive. Security breaches? Intellectual property theft? You're talking about collaborative work between team members. Amanda has been working closely with Ingrid for weeks, contributing her own insights and expertise to develop that presentation. Any suggestion otherwise is not only false but potentially slanderous. The confrontation escalated quickly as David demanded to see all evidence, threatened disciplinary action against Sarah and Kevin, and insisted that Amanda's work was entirely original. His defensive posture and immediate aggression only reinforced my growing certainty that he was fully aware of his daughter's activities and possibly involved in covering them up. The next 24 hours transformed my understanding of corporate corruption and family loyalty. Kevin Walsh worked through the night, conducting a comprehensive digital forensics investigation that revealed layers of deception I never could have imagined. When I arrived at the office the following morning, he had assembled evidence that would have impressed federal investigators. Ingrid, you need to see this, Kevin said, his eyes red from exhaustion but his voice energized by discovery. His usually organized workspace was covered with printed documents, external hard drives, and multiple laptops running different analysis programs. The spyware on your system is military-grade surveillance technology. This isn't something you buy on the dark web for a few $100s. Kevin's investigation had traced the malware to a sophisticated cybersecurity firm that specialized in corporate espionage and competitive intelligence gathering. Digital Dynamics Solutions wasn't just a consulting company. They were essentially professional hackers who sold surveillance and data theft services to clients willing to pay premium prices for plausible deniability. Look at this, Kevin continued, showing me detailed logs of every keystroke I had made over the past 6 weeks. They captured your passwords, monitored your personal emails, recorded your phone calls, and even activated your webcam to watch you working in your office. The level of invasion is absolutely staggering, but the most damaging evidence was what Kevin found on Amanda's computer. Despite her attempts to delete incriminating files, digital forensics recovery revealed the complete scope of her theft operation. She had detailed folders containing stolen work from multiple employees, not just me, organized by project value and potential commercial applications. Amanda has been systematically stealing intellectual property from every major project at TechFlow for the past 6 weeks, Kevin explained, opening folder after folder of stolen documents. She has copies of Robert's financial modeling algorithms, Jennifer's client relationship databases, Mark's software development protocols, and dozens of other proprietary materials. Sarah Chen arrived with additional legal team members and several boxes of printed evidence. Her investigation had expanded beyond just my case to encompass what appeared to be a much larger corporate espionage operation. The legal team had been working with external investigators and had uncovered Amanda's connections to competitors and industrial espionage networks. We've identified the 2 men Maria saw in the parking garage, Sarah announced, spreading surveillance photos across Kevin's desk. Thomas Mitchell and Stephen Burke, professional hackers with extensive criminal records involving corporate data theft. They've been arrested 3 times in different states for similar operations. The photographs showed 2 men in their 30s, one tall and thin with dark hair, the other shorter and stockier with a distinctive scar across his left cheek. According to Sarah's investigation, they operated a mobile hacking service that specialized in infiltrating corporate networks for clients who wanted to steal competitive intelligence or sabotage business rivals. But here's what really connects everything, Sarah continued, producing a thick legal document. We obtained financial records showing payments from David Thompson's personal bank account to Digital Dynamics Solutions, totaling over $75,000 over the past 18 months. The evidence was overwhelming. David Thompson hadn't just known about his daughter's theft operation, he had been financing it. The payments corresponded with Amanda's employment at different companies, suggesting a pattern of corporate espionage that had been ongoing for over a year and involving multiple victims across the healthcare technology industry. Maria appeared in Kevin's office carrying a small digital recorder and a notebook filled with handwritten observations. Her cleaning duties had given her access to areas and conversations that others never witnessed, and she had been documenting suspicious activities with the thoroughness of a professional investigator. I used to work for detective agency before cleaning jobs, Maria explained in her careful English. I know when people are doing bad things. Miss Amanda? She meets with those men many times, always late at night, always talking about computers and stealing. Mariah's recordings were remarkable. She had captured conversations between Amanda and the hackers discussing specific techniques for copying files, creating false digital trails, and covering their tracks after stealing intellectual property. The audio quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough to document criminal conspiracy and planning. They talk about framing Miss Ingrid, Maria continued, playing another recording. Amanda says her father will handle any legal problems, that nobody can touch her because of family connections. She laughs about how easy it is to steal from smart people who trust too much. Kevin's technical analysis confirmed every detail of Mariah's observations. The spyware installations, the credential theft, the systematic copying of proprietary files, everything had been captured in digital logs that provided irrefutable evidence of organized criminal activity. But the most shocking discovery was hidden in Amanda's deleted files, recovered through advanced forensics techniques. She had been submitting stolen intellectual property to the United States Patent Office under her own name, attempting to claim legal ownership of innovations created by other people. Your marketing algorithm, the one you developed during graduate school and perfected for the MedCore project, Amanda filed a patent application for it 3 weeks ago, Sarah said, showing me the official paperwork. If this patent had been approved, she would have owned exclusive rights to your life's work. The patent application was sophisticated and detailed, clearly prepared by expensive intellectual property attorneys. It described my algorithm with technical precision, including variations and improvements I had never shared with anyone at TechFlow. The only way Amanda could have obtained such detailed information was through the comprehensive surveillance of my personal computers and private research notes. She's done this before, Kevin added, pulling up patent databases on his computer. We found applications for stolen work from her previous employers, including proprietary software algorithms from Innovate Care and client analysis methodologies from Synergy Health Solutions. Sarah's legal team had identified a pattern spanning multiple companies and years of systematic intellectual property theft. Amanda would infiltrate organizations, steal valuable innovations, file patent applications to establish legal ownership, then disappear before investigations could be completed. Her father's influence and financial resources had enabled this criminal enterprise to operate without serious consequences. The estimated value of stolen intellectual property exceeds $10 million, Sarah reported, consulting her legal notes. This isn't just workplace misconduct or unethical behavior. This is organized criminal activity that crosses state lines and involves federal crimes, including wire fraud, computer fraud, and intellectual property theft. The scope of the criminal enterprise was staggering. Amanda and her father had been operating a sophisticated theft operation that targeted innovative companies, stole their most valuable intellectual property, and then either sold it to competitors or claimed ownership through fraudulent patent applications. As we reviewed the evidence, David Thompson's voice could be heard in the hallway outside Kevin's office, loudly demanding updates on the investigation and threatening disciplinary action against anyone questioning his daughter's integrity. His aggressive posture and immediate legal threats only confirmed our suspicions about his involvement in the criminal conspiracy. "He's scared," Sarah observed, listening to David's increasingly hostile demands through the office walls. Innocent people don't react with such immediate aggression and legal threats when presented with potential evidence. He knows exactly what Amanda has been doing, and he knows we're close to exposing everything. The evidence Kevin and Sarah had assembled was comprehensive enough for criminal prosecution, but we knew the real battle was just beginning. David Thompson's influence within TechFlow and his connections throughout the industry meant that exposing this criminal operation would require not just evidence, but also the courage to fight against powerful people who had never faced serious consequences for their actions. CEO Janet Williams called an emergency board meeting for Thursday morning after Sarah's legal team presented their preliminary findings. The company's executive conference room, normally reserved for quarterly reviews and strategic planning sessions, became the arena for what would determine not just my career, but the integrity of TechFlow Solutions itself. Janet Williams was a formidable leader in her early 60s, with silver hair and sharp blue eyes that had guided TechFlow through 15 years of growth and industry challenges. She had built the company from a small healthcare consulting firm into a major player in medical technology solutions, and her reputation for ethical leadership was legendary throughout the industry. The board meeting included Janet, CFO Robert Hayes, Chief Technology Officer Patricia Morgan, and 3 external board members who provided independent oversight for major corporate decisions. David Thompson arrived with his attorney, Jonathan Pierce, a sharp-dressed man from one of Chicago's most prestigious law firms who specialized in defending corporate executives against criminal allegations. I sat with Sarah Chen and Kevin Walsh, surrounded by boxes of evidence and technical documentation that represented weeks of investigation. Maria had been asked to attend as a witness, and she sat quietly in the corner, her hands folded but her eyes alert and determined. David's strategy became immediately apparent as Jonathan Pierce began speaking. Rather than defending Amanda's actions, they were going on the offensive, questioning the investigation's legitimacy and attacking the credibility of everyone involved in exposing the theft. My client believes this investigation represents a coordinated attempt to sabotage his daughter's legitimate career advancement, Pierce announced, his voice carrying the authority of expensive legal training. Miss Thompson has been the victim of workplace harassment, false accusations, and potentially criminal defamation by colleagues who resent her family connections and professional success. Pierce presented an alternative narrative that was both sophisticated and disturbing. According to his version of events, Amanda had been genuinely collaborating with me on the MedCore project, contributing original ideas and innovative strategies that enhanced my basic research. The patent applications were filed to protect collaborative work, and any evidence of file copying represented normal workplace collaboration rather than theft. Furthermore, Pierce continued, we have evidence suggesting that Miss Ingrid Jensen may have fabricated this entire conspiracy in anticipation of upcoming layoffs and performance reviews. Our investigation indicates that she has been struggling with her assigned responsibilities and may have created this elaborate story to deflect attention from her own professional shortcomings. The accusations were devastating because they contained just enough truth to seem plausible. TechFlow had indeed been considering staff reductions due to economic pressures, and my obsessive work on the MedCore project could be interpreted as compensation for other neglected responsibilities. Sarah Chen responded with methodical precision, presenting the digital evidence Kevin had compiled over the past 48 hours. The technical documentation was overwhelming, showing detailed logs of unauthorized access, systematic file theft, and sophisticated malware installations that required professional expertise to implement. The evidence clearly demonstrates organized criminal activity involving computer fraud, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, Sarah stated firmly. This isn't workplace collaboration or performance anxiety. This is systematic theft of proprietary information worth millions of dollars. Kevin presented the technical findings with scientific objectivity, explaining how the malware worked, how the surveillance had been conducted, and how the stolen files had been processed and organized for commercial exploitation. His presentation included screenshots, network logs, and forensic analysis that provided irrefutable proof of criminal activity. But David Thompson's attorney was prepared for technical evidence. Pierce brought in his own cybersecurity expert, Dr. Marcus Webb, who challenged Kevin's interpretations and suggested alternative explanations for the digital evidence. Computer forensics can be manipulated and misinterpreted by investigators with predetermined conclusions, Dr. Webb testified. The evidence presented could equally support a theory of legitimate file sharing and collaborative work processes. The battle over technical evidence continued for over 2 hours, with experts on both sides presenting conflicting interpretations of the same data. David Thompson sat confidently beside his attorney, occasionally whispering suggestions and maintaining the demeanor of someone being wrongfully accused by disgruntled subordinates. But Amanda's presence at the meeting would prove to be David's biggest mistake. She sat quietly during most of the technical presentations, but her composure cracked when Sarah began playing Mariah's audio recordings of conversations with the professional hackers. Amanda's voice could be clearly heard discussing specific details about my research methodologies, including variations on my marketing algorithm that I had never shared with anyone at TechFlow. She mentioned specific mathematical formulas and data analysis techniques that existed only in my private research notes from graduate school. Those algorithmic variations were never part of any TechFlow project or collaborative work, I explained to the board members. They exist only in my personal research files on my home computer, which was never connected to the TechFlow network. The implications were devastating. For Amanda to have knowledge of those specific technical details, she would have needed access to my personal computer and private research files. Her casual discussion of those formulas during recorded conversations with professional hackers provided irrefutable proof that the surveillance operation had extended far beyond workplace collaboration. Janet Williams asked pointed questions about how Amanda could have obtained such detailed knowledge of my private research. David Thompson's confident demeanor began to crack as his daughter's casual revelations exposed the true scope of their surveillance operation. Perhaps Miss Jensen shared those research details during their collaborative work sessions. Pierce suggested desperately, but his explanation sounded weak even to sympathetic board members. I never discussed my graduate school research with Amanda or anyone else at TechFlow. I responded firmly. Those specific algorithmic variations were theoretical explorations that I never implemented in any commercial project. Sarah then presented the patent applications that Amanda had filed using my stolen research. The patent documents described my innovations with technical precision that could only have been obtained through comprehensive surveillance and theft of my private intellectual property. The board members' questions became increasingly hostile toward David and Amanda as the evidence mounted. External board member George Patterson, a retired federal prosecutor, recognized the criminal implications immediately and began asking pointed questions about potential FBI involvement and federal charges. These allegations involve interstate commerce, computer fraud, and organized criminal activity, Patterson stated grimly. This board needs to consider immediate suspension of both David and Amanda Thompson pending federal investigation. David's reaction was explosive. He stood up abruptly, his face red with rage, and began shouting about corporate conspiracies and jealous employees trying to destroy his family. His loss of composure only reinforced the board's growing certainty that the allegations were true. This is a witch hunt orchestrated by people who resent our family's success and contributions to this company, David shouted. Amanda is being targeted because she's young, talented, and threatens the status quo that protects mediocre employees like Ingrid Jensen. Amanda finally spoke, and her words sealed their fate. I don't understand why everyone is making such a big deal about this, she said with remarkable arrogance. Every company does competitive intelligence research. We were just being more thorough and systematic than most organizations. Her casual admission of systematic intelligence gathering provided the final confirmation that board members needed. Amanda had essentially confessed to organized theft while attempting to justify it as normal business practice. Janet Williams called for a recess while the board consulted with their legal advisors. When the meeting resumed 30 minutes later, her expression was grim but determined. Based on the evidence presented and the admissions made during this meeting, the board is voting to immediately suspend David Thompson and Amanda Thompson pending federal investigation, Janet announced. We are also authorizing full cooperation with law enforcement agencies and directing our legal team to pursue all available civil remedies. David's final threat revealed the true extent of his desperation and moral corruption. You people have no idea who you're dealing with, he snarled at the board members. I have connections throughout this industry, and I will destroy this company and everyone involved in this persecution of my family. The meeting ended with security escorting David and Amanda from the building while their attorney made vague threats about wrongful termination lawsuits and defamation claims. But the evidence was too overwhelming, and their own admissions too damaging, for legal threats to carry any real weight. As I watched David and Amanda being escorted to the parking garage, I felt a complex mixture of vindication and sadness. These were people who had possessed every advantage in life, yet chose to build their success on theft, deception, and the exploitation of others' hard work and innovation. The FBI's involvement began within 48 hours of the board meeting, when Special Agent Lisa Rodriguez from the Chicago Field Office's Cybercrime Unit arrived at TechFlow with a warrant to seize all digital evidence related to the theft investigation. Agent Rodriguez was a compact woman in her 30s with short dark hair and the methodical demeanor of someone who had prosecuted dozens of corporate cybercrime cases. The federal investigation expanded rapidly as agents discovered the true scope of Amanda and David Thompson's criminal enterprise. Digital forensics experts from the FBI's Cyber Division worked alongside Kevin Walsh to analyze the professional-grade malware and trace its connections to organized cybercrime networks operating across multiple states. This is one of the most sophisticated corporate espionage operations we've investigated, Agent Rodriguez explained during my formal interview at the FBI field office. The Thompson family has been operating this theft network for over 3 years, targeting innovative companies throughout the healthcare technology sector. The federal investigation revealed that Digital Dynamics Solutions was connected to an international network of hackers specializing in industrial espionage and competitive intelligence theft. Thomas Mitchell and Stephen Burke, the men Maria had observed meeting with Amanda, were arrested in coordinated raids across Chicago and Milwaukee, along with 6 other individuals involved in the criminal enterprise. During the raids, federal agents recovered over 2 terabytes of stolen intellectual property from multiple companies, including detailed client databases, proprietary algorithms, strategic business plans, and confidential financial information worth an estimated $12 million. The scope of the operation was staggering, involving systematic theft from over 30 companies across 7 states. But David Thompson's response to the federal investigation demonstrated the arrogance and entitlement that had enabled his criminal behavior for years. Rather than cooperating with authorities or accepting responsibility, he launched an aggressive campaign to discredit the investigation and destroy the reputations of everyone who had exposed his family's crimes. David hired a team of private investigators to research my personal background, looking for any information that could be used to question my credibility or motivations. They investigated my financial situation, my educational background, my previous employment history, and even my personal relationships, searching for leverage to use against me in court. Meanwhile, Amanda began a sophisticated social media campaign designed to portray herself as the victim of workplace jealousy and corporate conspiracy. She created fake accounts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, spreading carefully crafted stories about being targeted by jealous colleagues who resented her family connections and professional success. Ingrid Jensen is a disgruntled employee who couldn't handle competition from a younger, more innovative colleague, Amanda posted on multiple platforms. She fabricated this entire conspiracy theory to cover up her own professional failures and avoid accountability for her declining performance. The social media campaign was coordinated and professional, clearly designed by public relations experts who specialized in reputation management and crisis communication. Amanda's posts gained traction among people who were predisposed to believe stories about corporate injustice and family persecution. Several TechFlow employees began expressing sympathy for Amanda, influenced by her carefully crafted narrative and unaware of the comprehensive evidence that federal investigators had compiled. The workplace atmosphere became tense and divided, with some colleagues avoiding me and others offering quiet support. Sarah Chen warned me about the potential for retaliation and intimidation as the federal case developed. David Thompson has significant resources and powerful connections, she explained during one of our legal strategy meetings. He's going to use every available tactic to discredit you and derail the prosecution. The intimidation campaign escalated when private investigators began following me home from work, photographing my apartment building, and interviewing my neighbors with questions about my personal life and mental stability. They posed as insurance investigators or market researchers, asking leading questions designed to gather negative information about my character and reliability. Kevin Walsh discovered that someone had attempted to hack into my personal computer and phone systems using sophisticated malware similar to what had been used to steal my work files. The attempted intrusion was traced back to Digital Dynamics Solutions, confirming that the Thompson family was continuing their criminal activities even after being caught and charged. They're trying to find personal information they can use to embarrass you or question your credibility, Kevin explained, showing me logs of the attempted cyber attacks. This is witness intimidation and obstruction of justice, and we're documenting everything for the federal prosecutors. The legal battle intensified when David Thompson's attorney filed motions challenging the admissibility of the digital evidence, claiming that Kevin's forensic analysis was biased and that the FBI's investigation was based on false assumptions and fabricated claims. Jonathan Pierce argued that the malware could have been planted by disgruntled employees seeking to frame Amanda, and that the patent applications represented legitimate attempts to protect collaborative work rather than stolen intellectual property. The prosecution's entire case is based on circumstantial evidence and the testimony of unreliable witnesses with obvious motivations to fabricate accusations, Pierce argued in court filings. My clients are being persecuted because of their family relationship and their success in a competitive industry. But the federal prosecutors had built an overwhelming case based on digital evidence, financial records, audio recordings, and witness testimony from multiple sources. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Martinez specialized in cybercrime prosecution and had successfully prosecuted dozens of similar cases involving corporate espionage and intellectual property theft. The evidence clearly demonstrates organized criminal activity involving computer fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit industrial espionage, Martinez stated during pretrial hearings. The defendants operated a systematic theft network that caused millions of dollars in damages to victims across multiple states. The case was strengthened when 3 employees from Amanda's previous companies came forward with similar experiences. Jennifer Walsh from Innovate Care, Michael Chen from Synergy Health Solutions, and Patricia Brown from MedTech Innovations all testified about suspicious activities, missing files, and stolen intellectual property that corresponded with Amanda's employment periods. Their testimonies revealed a consistent pattern of behavior spanning over 3 years and involving systematic theft from innovative healthcare technology companies. Amanda would infiltrate organizations as a consultant or temporary employee, gain access to valuable projects and proprietary information, then disappear when legal investigations began. She stole our entire client database and our proprietary patient analysis algorithms, Jennifer Walsh testified. We lost over $2 million in business when our competitors suddenly started using our methods and contacting our exclusive clients. The testimony from previous victims was devastating because it established a clear pattern of criminal behavior that couldn't be explained as workplace misunderstandings or collaborative disputes. Amanda and David Thompson had been operating an organized theft network that systematically targeted innovative companies and stole their most valuable intellectual property. During Amanda's preliminary hearing, her arrogance and sense of entitlement were fully displayed when she testified in her own defense. Rather than expressing remorse or accepting responsibility, she argued that her actions represented normal competitive intelligence gathering that every successful company practiced. I was just being more thorough and systematic than most people in gathering market intelligence and competitive analysis, Amanda stated under oath. Every company researches their competitors and tries to understand successful methodologies. I was simply more effective at it than others. Her casual dismissal of federal charges and her apparent belief that theft was justified by competitive pressures demonstrated the moral corruption that had enabled her criminal behavior for years. The federal case moved forward rapidly as prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence of organized criminal activity. But I knew the real battle for justice was just beginning, and David Thompson's resources and connections meant that victory was far from guaranteed. The breakthrough in the federal case came from an unexpected source when Dr. Patricia Kim, a forensic accountant working with the FBI, discovered a pattern of financial transactions that revealed the true scope of David Thompson's criminal enterprise. Her investigation uncovered bank records showing systematic payments to industrial espionage networks spanning over 5 years and involving dozens of companies across multiple industries. David Thompson wasn't just enabling his daughter's theft operation, Dr. Kim explained during a meeting with federal prosecutors. He was operating a sophisticated corporate espionage business that sold stolen intellectual property to competitors and foreign companies. The financial evidence revealed payments totaling over $300,000 to various hacking groups, private investigators, and cybercrime specialists. But more damning were the deposits into offshore accounts that corresponded with the sale of stolen intellectual property to TechFlow's direct competitors and international technology firms. Amanda had been serving as the infiltration specialist in a much larger operation that systematically targeted innovative American companies, stole their proprietary technologies, and sold that intellectual property to foreign competitors. The Thompson family had been essentially operating a commercial espionage service that threatened national economic security. Agent Rodriguez called an emergency meeting when the investigation uncovered evidence that stolen American healthcare technologies were being sold to Chinese and Russian companies, potentially compromising sensitive medical data systems and patient privacy protections. This case has escalated beyond corporate theft into potential national security implications, Agent Rodriguez explained. The Thompson network has been selling American medical technology innovations to foreign competitors, possibly enabling foreign surveillance of American healthcare systems. The national security angle brought additional federal resources into the investigation, including specialists from the Department of Homeland Security and the Defense Intelligence Agency. The case that had started with my stolen presentation had uncovered a systematic threat to American technological competitiveness and economic security. But David Thompson's response to the escalating federal investigation demonstrated his complete disconnection from ethical and legal reality. Rather than cooperating with authorities or attempting to minimize the damage, he doubled down on his aggressive tactics and began threatening everyone involved in exposing his criminal operation. Private investigators working for David began conducting surveillance of Agent Rodriguez, Sarah Chen, Kevin Walsh, and even Maria, the cleaning lady whose observations had started the investigation. They photographed our homes, researched our personal backgrounds, and attempted to intimidate us into dropping our cooperation with federal prosecutors. The intimidation campaign reached a dangerous level when someone broke into my apartment while I was at work, searching through my personal belongings and stealing my laptop and personal files. Nothing of monetary value was taken, but my research notes, personal documents, and backup drives containing evidence of the theft were all missing. Kevin's technical analysis confirmed that the break-in was professional and targeted, designed to steal specific information rather than valuable items. They were looking for personal information they could use against you, and backup evidence they could destroy, Kevin explained. This is witness intimidation and obstruction of justice. The FBI responded to the break-in by placing me under protective surveillance and expediting the criminal charges against the Thompson family. Agent Rodriguez explained that witness intimidation often indicated that defendants were desperate and dangerous, requiring enhanced protective measures. David Thompson is escalating his criminal behavior because he knows the evidence against him is overwhelming, Agent Rodriguez said. Desperate people with resources and connections can be extremely dangerous to witnesses and investigators. The protective surveillance was both reassuring and terrifying, confirming that I was potentially in physical danger from people who had already demonstrated their willingness to commit federal crimes to protect their interests. But the Thompson family's aggressive tactics ultimately accelerated their downfall when Amanda made a crucial mistake during a recorded phone conversation with one of her hacker associates. Federal wiretaps captured her discussing plans to flee to a non-extradition country with stolen intellectual property worth millions of dollars. "I'm not going to prison for this," Amanda was recorded saying to Thomas Mitchell, who was cooperating with federal investigators after his arrest. "My father has connections in Costa Rica and the Cayman Islands. We can disappear with enough stolen technology to live comfortably for years." The recorded conversation provided federal prosecutors with additional charges, including conspiracy to flee prosecution and attempted export of stolen intellectual property. More importantly, it demonstrated that Amanda had no remorse for her crimes and was planning to continue her criminal activities in international markets. Amanda's arrest at Chicago O'Hare International Airport became national news when federal agents discovered her attempting to board a flight to Costa Rica with external hard drives containing over 50 gigabytes of stolen intellectual property from multiple American companies. The arrest was captured by security cameras and widely broadcast on news programs as an example of corporate espionage and economic crime. The media attention surrounding Amanda's arrest attempt brought widespread publicity to the case and attracted the attention of other victims who had previously been intimidated into silence. Over the following weeks, federal investigators were contacted by employees from 12 additional companies who reported similar theft operations and suspicious activities by the Thompson network. The expanding investigation revealed that the Thompson family had been operating their corporate espionage business for over 7 years, systematically targeting innovative American companies and selling their proprietary technologies to foreign competitors and domestic rivals. The estimated total damage exceeded $25 million and involved hundreds of stolen innovations and trade secrets. But perhaps the most satisfying development was the response from Medcore Industries when they learned about the theft of my presentation and the attempted fraud during their contract negotiations. CEO Margaret Foster personally called me to express outrage about the deception and to offer Medcore's support in the federal prosecution. "We were completely deceived by Amanda Thompson's fraudulent presentation," CEO Foster explained during our phone conversation. Medcore Industries has zero tolerance for intellectual property theft and corporate fraud. We want to ensure that justice is served and that innovative professionals like you are protected from this kind of exploitation. Medcore's support provided crucial validation of my professional reputation and the value of my stolen work. More importantly, CEO Foster offered me an independent consulting contract to develop the client acquisition strategies that Amanda had attempted to steal, providing me with the opportunity to rebuild my career while the federal case proceeded. "Your innovative approaches to healthcare market analysis are exactly what Medcore needs to expand our client relationships," CEO Foster explained. "We want to work directly with the person who created these groundbreaking methodologies, not with thieves who steal other people's work." The consulting contract was worth $200,000 annually and included intellectual property protections that would ensure my innovations remained under my control. It represented not just financial security, but professional vindication and the opportunity to rebuild my career stronger than before. As Amanda sat in federal custody awaiting trial, and David Thompson faced multiple felony charges, I realized that the nightmare that had started with Mariah's warning in the break room had transformed into an opportunity to expose systematic corruption and protect other innovative professionals from similar exploitation. 6 months after that devastating morning when Maria warned me about my stolen presentation, I stood in the federal courthouse in Chicago watching Amanda Thompson accept a plea agreement that would send her to federal prison for 5 years and require her to pay restitution of over $8 million to her victims. The plea hearing was standing room only, filled with victims from multiple companies, federal investigators, and journalists covering what had become one of the largest corporate espionage cases in recent American history. Amanda sat beside her, court-appointed attorney, her designer suits replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her confident demeanor replaced by the hollow stare of someone who finally understood the consequences of years of criminal behavior. Judge Patricia Williams, who presided over the case, delivered a sentencing statement that captured the broader implications of the Thompson family's crimes. "This case represents a systematic attack on American innovation and economic competitiveness," Judge Williams stated. "The defendants operated a criminal enterprise that threatened not just individual companies, but the fundamental principles of intellectual property protection that drive technological advancement." Amanda's guilty plea to charges of computer fraud, wire fraud, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to commit industrial espionage marked the end of her criminal career. But it also represented justice for dozens of victims whose innovations had been stolen and sold to competitors. David Thompson faced even more severe consequences when federal prosecutors revealed the full scope of his financial involvement in the espionage network. His guilty plea to racketeering charges, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit economic espionage resulted in a 12-year federal prison sentence and the forfeiture of over $15 million in assets acquired through criminal activities. The financial penalties were devastating for the Thompson family, requiring them to liquidate their luxury homes, expensive cars, and investment portfolios to pay restitution to victims. David's reputation in the healthcare technology industry was permanently destroyed, and his professional licenses were revoked by multiple state regulatory agencies. But the most meaningful aspect of the case's resolution was the systematic identification and compensation of victims across multiple companies and industries. Federal investigators worked with forensic accountants to trace stolen intellectual property and calculate damages, ultimately identifying over 60 separate theft incidents involving 43 different companies. My own restitution award of $1.2 million reflected the value of my stolen marketing algorithms and the potential licensing fees that Amanda had attempted to steal through fraudulent patent applications. The money provided financial security, but more importantly, it represented official recognition of the value and originality of my professional work. The consulting relationship with MedCore Industries evolved into a permanent strategic partnership that allowed me to establish my own marketing research firm, specializing in healthcare technology innovation. Within 6 months of launching Jensen Healthcare Analytics, I had signed contracts with 8 major clients and hired 4 employees, including Maria, who became my Director of Security and Investigative Services. Maria's transformation from night cleaner to security professional represented one of the most inspiring aspects of our shared journey toward justice. Her previous experience with a detective agency, combined with her natural observational skills and moral courage, made her invaluable in helping other companies identify and prevent corporate espionage threats. I always knew when people were doing wrong things, Maria explained during an interview with a business journal covering our story. But I never had anyone believe me or support me before. Miss Ingrid taught me that speaking truth can make real change happen. Kevin Walsh also benefited from the case's publicity when his digital forensics expertise attracted attention from federal agencies and private security firms. He left TechFlow to establish his own cybersecurity consulting practice, specializing in protecting small and medium-sized companies from sophisticated theft operations. Sarah Chen's legal work on the case established her reputation as a leading expert in intellectual property protection and corporate crime prosecution. She was promoted to general counsel at TechFlow and frequently consulted with other companies facing similar threats from organized theft networks. TechFlow Solutions itself emerged stronger from the crisis when CEO Janet Williams implemented comprehensive ethics training, transparent promotion policies, and advanced cybersecurity measures that became models for the industry. The company's reputation for integrity and security attracted new clients who valued protection from corporate espionage threats. The broader impact of the Thompson case extended far beyond individual victims, when federal prosecutors used the evidence to identify and prosecute an international network of corporate espionage specialists. Over the following year, coordinated investigations led to arrests and convictions of professional hackers, corrupt consultants, and foreign agents involved in systematic theft of American intellectual property. Industry organizations responded to the case by developing new standards for protecting proprietary information, detecting insider threats, and supporting employees who report suspicious activities. Professional associations established whistleblower protection programs and created resources for companies to implement comprehensive security measures. The personal impact of surviving and exposing systematic criminal exploitation taught me invaluable lessons about courage, integrity, and the importance of standing up against injustice even when the odds seem overwhelming. The experience strengthened my belief that moral courage and careful documentation can overcome even sophisticated criminal operations supported by wealth and political connections. But perhaps the most important lesson was understanding that individual acts of courage can create ripple effects that protect many other people from similar exploitation. By refusing to accept theft and fighting back against corruption, we exposed a criminal network that had been harming innovative professionals for years. The relationship with Maria evolved into a deep friendship based on mutual respect and shared commitment to protecting honest people from exploitation. Her willingness to risk her job security to warn me about suspicious activities demonstrated the kind of moral courage that makes justice possible in corrupt environments. Today, Jensen Healthcare Analytics employs 15 people and has helped dozens of companies protect their intellectual property while developing innovative solutions for healthcare challenges. Our success is built on the same principles of integrity, innovation, and respect for others' work that Amanda and David Thompson tried to destroy through their criminal enterprise. The federal case also led to legislative reforms when Congress passed new laws strengthening penalties for corporate espionage and providing additional resources for investigating intellectual property theft. The Thompson case was frequently cited during congressional hearings as an example of why stronger protections were needed for American innovation and technological competitiveness. 3 years later, as I write this story, Amanda Thompson remains in federal prison serving her sentence, while David Thompson is appealing his conviction from a federal penitentiary in Illinois. Their criminal network has been completely dismantled, and dozens of their victims have received justice and compensation for years of exploitation. The experience taught me that justice is possible even against powerful and well-connected criminals, but it requires courage, persistence, and the willingness to fight for what's right even when the personal costs seem overwhelming. Most importantly, it demonstrated that ordinary people with moral courage can make extraordinary differences when they refuse to accept injustice and exploitation. Looking back on that morning when Maria warned me about my stolen laptop, I realized that her simple act of moral courage changed not just my life, but the lives of dozens of other victims who finally received justice for years of criminal exploitation. Sometimes the most important moments in life begin with someone caring enough to say, "Mom, don't go in yet." Have you ever experienced workplace theft or seen someone taking credit for your ideas? How did you handle the situation, and what advice would you give to others facing similar challenges? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for justice in difficult situations, and share it with anyone who might benefit from learning about the importance of courage in fighting corruption. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your voice and your courage can make a real difference in protecting integrity and innovation in every workplace. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never let anyone steal your dreams or your hard work.